Welcome to Autotown. From the factory floor to the C-suite to the dealership lot, everyone is welcome in Autotown, a place to go for insights and analysis of what's happening in the auto industry. I'm your host, Jamie Butters. Hey, I'm Jamie Butters. It's my honor to welcome you to Autotown. Autotown is your place for insights about the auto industry, representing all of its constituents. From the factory floor to the C-suite to the dealership lot, everyone is welcome in Autotown. Autotown is brought to you in part by Aumovio and by Toyota. Riding shotgun with me as my guest co-host is Gary Vasilash, former longtime editor-in-chief of Automotive Design Production. He writes the Shiny Metal Boxes blog on Substack, where he's also a member of the Car Collective, and he is the stalwart co-host of Autoline After Hours. Gary, welcome to Autotown.
Jamie, thanks for having me.
You are one of the hardest working retired people I know. I'm so glad you're able to swing by Autotown.
Not at all.
A little later, we're going to browse the dealership lot with Matt Simpson, Executive Director of Ford Customization. And in the Town Hall segment, we'll talk about how you tell your car what to do through a touchscreen or buttons and knobs, or just by swearing at it maybe. But first, Gary and I are going to take a quick drive around the block and talk about the latest in the industry. Today is the day. We're recording on Monday, July 27th, 2026, and as we speak, the first cars and trucks should be traversing the Gordie Howe International Bridge. It's been a long time coming. It's conceived under President Obama. Construction began under President Trump in his first term. Then the president delayed the opening, but here it is. Gary, for industrial traffic between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, this is going from one bridge to two, but the capacity really with the kind of fast pass technology for commuters, and it looks like a lot more than doubling of capacity. Is this something the industry has been looking forward to?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's hard to wrap your arms around how much traffic flows through the Detroit corridor from Canada to the U.S. and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a tremendous amount. I mean, it's like $1 billion a day in trade passes between the two. Okay, so there has long been the Ambassador Bridge, which goes back to the late 1920s. For truck traffic. There is the Detroit Tunnel, but that's not,
doesn't work for trucks.
That doesn't work
not for
trucks.
A big semi.
And then north of the city, there's the Blue Water Bridge.
Yep.
But again, these things are like beyond capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with the trade kerfuffles that exist, there's still a lot of trade going on. So the new bridge will have like 20 passenger lanes. Okay, and so there will be a greater flow. It's set up so currently trucks that come into the U.S. from Canada or go the opposite way, they have to wend their way around to be able to get on the freeways that they need to get on to go drop off their deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it's set up so you're dropped right off on I-75 Detroit. You're dropped right off on the 401 in Canada. So you're good to go. So
super efficient logistics.
You've got super efficient logistics, and there's significantly less waiting time that these truck operators will have. So given the flow of parts that go back and forth between U.S. and Canada to build vehicles, I mean it's a huge benefit right across the board.
Yeah, I heard someone on the radio saying often on the bridge they end up with a 3-hour wait. If they can cut it down to a half hour, that's basically, driving, stopping, paperwork, and move on. That's 2.5 hours of productive labor from a truck driver makes a big difference in their day.
Yeah, and so according to the Canadian Trucking Alliance, depending on the size of a truck fleet, they can save between $20,000 and $100,000 a month by this greater efficiency that's happening. So, you look at the trucking companies, and I think margins are probably pretty thin there. So that's a big benefit.
Right. Well, also today, President Trump is coming to Michigan, to Milford, out in exurban Michigan, to GM's proving grounds. Yeah, I believe GM is glad to be able to show off some vehicles and technology, but most of the coverage has really been about the president's campaign for the Republican primary election next week. And to be clear, GM doesn't endorse candidates. They just work with whoever's in power. But I mean, is there a risk that GM tries to do a nice thing and show their facilities to the president and it gets hijacked as a political event?
Well, if it gets hijacked as a political event, it'll be hijacked by the president and what he says. And so, although he hasn't made the speech yet, as we're doing this show, the politicos that I have read this morning indicate that he's going to talk a lot about the jobs and the investments that have come back as a result of the tariffs. And if you think about it, I mean, that's sort of a slippery slope for him to be making these observations in the state of Michigan.
You have some numbers, right? I mean, it's not like Michigan is booming in its manufacturing right now.
Right. So, now these are two different sources. So in 2021, according to the Mackinac Policy Center, Mackinac being Straits of Mackinac, Michigan, so this is a Michigan thing, there were 175,745 manufacturing jobs in automotive in the state of Michigan. Okay?
175-ish.
And according to Mich Auto, which is from the Detroit Regional Chamber, in keeping these numbers, as of May of this year, there are 155,000 manufacturing jobs in the state of Michigan. So basically, it's like 20,000 down. So, it's not a really solid message.
Well, right. It's hard to land. I know what he's going to say, or at least I know part of it, right? GM has announced a lot of moves that they're going to make. Things take time. Hyundai has announced tens of billions of dollars in investment. But of course, these things take time to come to pass. And voters get impatient. It's hard to tell people, hey, the economy is going to be really great. They don't really care what it's going to be. They care what it is.
Right. Another thing you got to keep in mind is that General Motors, as well as the other OEMs, invested a tremendous amount of money in electric vehicles. And they have really taken it on the chin as a result of the $7,500 tax credit that no longer exists. So, there becomes a lot of sunk costs. So, as they're at the proving ground in Milford, I'm sure that there are more than 2 or 3 people that are just shaking their heads going, geez, we were so far along on this path.
Yeah.
And this just caused a chasm to form between where we need to be and where we are now. So the support of the government should have been there, which it isn't.
Yeah, GM, I mean, I think sometimes it's easy to forget, especially as GM has gone running back to, V8s and really leaning into the big trucks and SUVs. They were the only company other than Tesla to max out the EV incentives in the first package of support. They were big proponents. I mean, they're still number 2 in EVs in the U.S. if you count all 4 of their brands.
Right.
But they were on the brink of becoming break-even and then profitable on EVs, they said. And now there's really no timeline for that. And to your point, that is ultimately where the global market seems to be going.
So, and if you think about it, so last week when Mary Barra was talking about the Q2
Earnings,
numbers and announced, Cadillac is going to be coming out with new vehicles that have ICE powertrains.
Yeah.
And if we just wind the clock back not that far, Cadillac was going to be the leading brand for General Motors in terms of electric vehicles. And now it seems like, well, they've got the electric vehicles. They're there. But the attention will probably be on the V8 engine that'll go into the CT5V.
Yeah, a lot more attention on horsepower than
Exactly.
EVs these days. Possible the president will talk about the conflict with Iran after a weekend of not too much bombing. The oil futures are back in the 80s. Gasoline remains above $4 a gallon. Shifting gears, of course, the bridge opening comes in the context of trade and the ongoing negotiations over USMCA. And those talks all take place in the shadow of U.S. relations with China. There's a lot of layers to it, but I want to talk a little about Ford. Executive Chair Bill Ford got a lot of attention for saying that incumbent automakers need to go toe-to-toe with China. And then the company decided to share its assembly plant in Spain with Geely, one of the most aggressive and, frankly, impressive Chinese automakers. Gary, what do you think's going on here?
Well, okay, there's two ways I think you can look at this. One is that in Europe, it is very difficult to close plants for auto manufacturers. I mean, and this is the nightmare that I'm sure you've talked about, the Volkswagen situation where they're talking about closing plants. Okay, so Ford has this plant in Spain that is, shall we say, underutilized. Okay, so question becomes, what do you do with it? Do you try to shut it down, or do you try to find a way to keep things operating? Okay, and so they took that choice to keep things operating. The thing that I fear is that if we look at what I think caused some of the mess in terms of the Western automakers, I mean, and so we're talking about the Europeans as well as the U.S. automakers, and we can even throw in the Japanese and Koreans in there as well, is the fact that, like, oh, let's go to China. It's this great market. We'll be able to sell lots and lots and lots of vehicles. And they went there, and the Chinese said,
they sold a lot of vehicles.
And the Chinese said, yeah, come on in, but you know what? You've got to give us your technology, which is what they did. And lo and behold, now the Chinese are technological leaders, and this is a very serious problem for all of the other automakers in the world. Is Ford opening the door even wider for the Chinese to be manufacturing products in Europe? And therefore, you know, the likes of the aforementioned Volkswagen will be in trouble, Mercedes will be in trouble, BMW will be in trouble, and things will not be good.
Possibly. I mean, I think maybe part of the other way to look at it is that Ford, and I'm not hearing this from Ford people, but I think there's an argument to be made that maybe they're trying to do a jujitsu, trying to use the Chinese strengths against them and reverse course and say, come to work with us, we'll figure out what you've learned, and then we can use that back against you. I feel like Ford has their Skunk Works project, so maybe they shouldn't need to do that. They've kind of already made their pitch for trying to leapfrog the technology from something like an F-150 Lightning EV to something that's truly globally competitive. But I think maybe that could be part of their argument.
Okay, but Ford has also recently announced a deal that they're working with Renault. And we even think in the context of that, like, oh, they're going to get some great ideas from the people at Renault. They had the deal with Volkswagen, right? So
that's why maybe they need a different kind of partner than just those old incumbent automakers.
Well, I hope you're right. I fear you're not.
So we'll see. It'll be we'll see how it turns out. I want to switch. I want to talk about affordability here. What goes up must come down is what the man used to sing, but that isn't the case with prices.
Spinning wheel.
Never has been. That's right. Blood, sweat, and tears. But I'm not just talking about cars, but the price of everything, right? It's just kind of built into having an economy where there's an increasing supply of currency, physical and virtual digital currency. Prices go up over time. That's pretty much a fact with a few noteworthy exceptions. Gary, I know you've been giving a lot of thought to affordability as an issue in the industry. It isn't really something that can be reduced to just one number, right? It's kind of complicated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the question becomes whether or not the affordability problem is driven primarily by people wanting to have better, flashy, shinier stuff. Okay, and so if you do that, you're going to naturally be driving up the price of anything. Okay, so you can have a low MSRP on something, but by the time you leave the dealership, and even if the dealer throws in free mats, you know, you're way far away from the MSRP.
Because most of us we want heated seats. Maybe we want cooled seats or massaging seats, and we want a navigation system or a driver assistance system.
Or at least we think we want these things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a classic situation of, because you think about, okay, you said nothing goes down, but, Moore's law worked in the computer industry for a very long time that, you'd have more powerful computer for less money, right?
Well, and there's a case. You want to tell about the Cox numbers? Aaron Keating talked about how inflation adjusted
CRV. That you look at the CRV from, what was it, 10 years ago, and you adjust for inflation, and the number is like what it was then. I mean, that's what you're earning. But the thing about it is that if you look at
You've added so much technology.
Well, you added so much technology, but the other aspect that you need to take into account is while the price for the vehicle may be comparable over time, so it's not an affordability problem, but affordability just isn't the price of the vehicle. So if you look at the...
So wait, I first want to break it down. Let me break one step in. So the vehicle is arguably even a better value because inflation adjusted is basically the same price, but you've got a bigger screen, you've got better connectivity, you've got, the software is better, the driving assistance is better. You're getting a better value on that vehicle purchase. But to your point, it's not all you're buying.
No, I mean, it's you have to buy insurance, right?
You have to buy insurance.
And insurance rates have gone way up. You mentioned oil prices. I mean, you got to buy gasoline. Gasoline prices have gone way up. I mean, even if you adjust for inflation, you're still spending more money. You look at the median household income in the United States. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's not going up leaps and bounds. And suddenly you're faced with the average is like $85,000 a year
household income. Yeah.
And if you've got a vehicle that has a sticker of 48 grand, you got some problems there in terms of what you're going to be buying and what you're not going to be buying. So I think the automakers have been doing a yeoman's job in terms of providing product that consumers ought to be very happy to be able to afford to buy. Okay. And I think that they don't get enough credit for that. But, it's not going so well.
The fact that the prices are basically the same adjusted for inflation just means that the price of everything else went up as much as cars did. And we know that cars made a huge jump, unnatural jump, during COVID times. They've kind of leveled off for a while. At the same time, the interest rates have gone up. And the other one is the destination charges have really gone up. And those don't show up a lot of times until you get to the monthly payment, which, as you noted, is more than a fifth of people who financed a vehicle in the second quarter are paying more than $1,000 a month for their payment, not counting the insurance, the fuel, the parking, right, all that other stuff.
And then they're paying this, 72-month loans are becoming more and more common. And it's just like, this is insane. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy.
All right. So customer satisfaction, right? Because price has to do with how people think about whatever people pay for a car. They expect a lot if they buy a new car. You took a dive into the American Customer Satisfaction Index for 2026, and you saw some troubling signs, especially for luxury brands.
Well, the problem is that so the ACSI breaks it into two sections: mass market cars, luxury cars. Okay, and historically, the luxury cars have provided more satisfaction, so there'd be a higher number score, on a 0 to 100 metric. And then there is mass market vehicles, okay, and which would always be lower. Well, this year, for the first time in years, the numbers are the same.
That's crazy.
So, it's like, so the luxury owner is less satisfied with his or her vehicle than the consumer of a mass market vehicle.
So if I dial back 10 years or so, in most of the last 20 years or so, there could be the case a lot of times where, it's the luxury brands that are adding more technology. The technology fails more often because it's more cutting edge. It hasn't been, proven to be auto durable level. You'd see it in things like IQS, or even VDS, durability study, initial quality study.
JD
but
Power.
from JD Power. But you say beyond that, this is troubling. It's not that they have more stuff that's going wrong necessarily, but people don't feel like they're getting enough satisfaction for what they're paying.
Well, it seems that, if you look at it on the aggregate, so it's all your aspects of your experience with your vehicle, and it includes, the dealership experience. It includes, when you're buying the vehicle, as well as when you need to take your vehicle into repair is wrapped into this customer satisfaction number. But, according to the ACSI, sorry, that customers feeling cost pressures are beginning to look at vehicles and say, wait a minute, if I can get a Camry that is as good as a Lexus ES, I'll keep it within the family there, and that why should I buy the Lexus?
Mhm.
Okay, because at least I can get all the stuff, the good stuff, or most of the stuff on the Camry as I can on the ES.
Mhm.
Therefore, you got decisions to make. You might make that decision.
And you might be super satisfied with yourself saying, I got all this for this, a third less price.
Right. And then, it gets to the whole thing. And it's not even the K-shaped economy issue, of the very super wealthy and then the people who are really, really down on it. You just look at the average American in the middle, being faced with tremendous prices of lots of stuff.
Mhm.
And, you make your rational decisions on, okay, what do I want? Now, certainly, you can show off by having a luxury brand, but, at the end of the day, if the luxury brand panache isn't enough to overcome the demerits of the vehicle in your driving experience and your ownership experience, then why buy a luxury vehicle? Because as you know, if we look over the years, at whether it's JD Power scores or whatever else, that cars have gotten really, really good. Quality's gotten better and better and better.
Yep.
And therefore, you come to some point where, is it worth an
How much more can you get?
for having a better pedigree, a better vehicle?
Well, so let me ask you about one company that spans the entirety of the market, and that's General Motors. It had some worrying figures.
Yeah. So basically, it's. If we go to the luxury category, General Motors Cadillac brand was at the bottom.
Very last
of all.
We just had, Henry Payne was on the radio a couple weeks ago. He loves Cadillac. He loves the styling. He loves how they drive. He loves the tech. Not winning over the people in this study.
No, so it from the 2025 study that ACSI did to the 2026 study, Cadillac dropped 15%.
Youch.
Okay, and so it went from 81 to 69. Now, just above it on the list is Infiniti. Okay, nobody talks about Infiniti anymore, but there it is. Infiniti's got better customer satisfaction, according to the study, than Cadillac does. And then you look at what else is going on in the General Motors portfolio. Buick fell 16 points in the mass market study, and it is second from the bottom. Chevy dropped 5%. It's in the lower quadrant. It's not doing great. And GMC dropped 6 percentage points in the mass market category. And, every single one of the General Motors brands has a minus sign in front of their scores.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? That's curious. Did they just not have enough new and exciting product come out? It's not like their quality fell apart or pricing went crazy.
Well, I think part of it might be an awareness of competitive product is growing more than it has over the years. Okay, so one of the things is that as people have more access to information, digital data that tells them like, oh, gee whiz, like, look how great this Subaru is. I never even thought about a Subaru.
Well,
And
or
it's got this,
Tesla
that,
and
the other thing.
Rivian as sort of new players that kind of changed the bar and the expectations for
Right.
technology.
And
Yeah.
but by having this consciousness of what you can get and what you can get for the money, this I think is put pressure on the traditional domestic brands. And but yeah, it's not good for GM from this study. I mean, they're not going to be touting that at all. So,
Well, it's just one data set, but it gives us a lot to think about. Thanks so much, Gary. Next up, I'm going to browse the dealership lot with Matt Simpson, Executive Director of Ford Customization, and then we'll go to the town hall to discuss this week's poll. Aumovio is a top-tier global automotive supplier, but some of you may not be familiar with the name. Aumovio is the independent company that used to be Continental's automotive business. It spun off last September to be an adaptive, high-performance powerhouse built to thrive in today's rapidly evolving automotive landscape. It's the startup with decades of experience behind it, delivering cutting-edge solutions and leading the way in making future mobility safe, exciting, connected, and autonomous. Aumovio, more than a new company, it's a bold vision for the future of mobility. This is a segment I call Browsing the Dealership Lot, and this particular chat is on location. Not at a dealership, but at the Michigan International Speedway in the southern central part of the state. Ford brought some journalists to the track to experience the capabilities of Ford vehicles upfitted with factory-designed and company-installed accessories, from appearance elements to triple-digit horsepower-boosting performance parts and packages. The owners of the Jeep and Dodge brands have over the years padded their bottom lines with sales of accessory parts, often competing with independent companies and enthusiast startups that develop their own add-on parts. The Ford Custom Garage aims to capture more of that kind of business for the Blue Oval brand and to provide customers with the simplicity, convenience, and warranty protection of upgrades that can be rolled into the monthly payment. To hear more about the thinking behind the program, let's go to the track. Matt Simpson, Director of Ford Customization. We're out here today learning about the Ford Custom Garage. Tell the folks what that is. It's a pretty new thing.
Yeah, we launched it last year, and the goal of Custom Garage was to really take the great lineup of genuine Ford accessories and Ford racing parts and put them into packages that we can curate from Ford Motor Company, and not just slap a part on the car, but put a whole system together to really give a totally different dynamic to the vehicle. And then to make it really easy. We heard a lot of our customers wanting to do more customization, but it can be intimidating if you've never done it. And so what we can do with the Custom Garage is it checks one box for the customer or our dealer, and parts are pre-installed before they take delivery. So it was really about bringing customization at scale.
And you know, for generations, people have been tuning their cars, doing it themselves, and they've become so complicated, it seems like it'd be really hard for enthusiasts to do that themselves. I mean, some of them are they're engineers, but there's a whole lot more than just adding some parts or swapping some things out.
Yeah, and you know, you can still buy all of our Ford racing parts. You can do the DIY thing, and you can build it up piece by piece. So that market is
still
alive
an option.
And well.
Yep.
And it's still, but you know, we found a lot of customers, they get intimidated by it. Some, they know they want to do something unique, but they might not know what it is yet. They need to be inspired a little bit. And it's really just, where do I start? And so you can dig through the forums, you can hit all the YouTube channels. I love doing it, I get it, that's great, right? But we wanted to give an easy button for our customers and really to be an inspiration for more builds to come.
Yeah. So these come in packages oftentimes where it's multiple things together, not just adding a part or a component.
Yeah, correct. So we're standing here in front of the FB800S. The main focal point here is obviously the wonderful supercharger, but with it, it's a lowering kit, it's wheels, it's suspension components all tuned together, and then a unique calibration that we put in to really make this vehicle hang together.
You mentioned earlier that almost half of new car buyers customize their vehicle in some way. That seems really high to me. Is that counting just some appearance items like a floor mat or something?
So it's almost half of Ford customers.
Okay, half of Ford customers.
Our competitors are closer to about 30%. So
Okay.
we know that our Ford customers are wanting to personalize more. And yes, it can be something as minor as I put a bed liner in my truck. We consider that personalizing your vehicle and accessorizing it. The reason Ford is really high on this is the product showroom that we've had. We've never had a showroom lean so much into capability and passion, and it's our truck lineup, it's Bronco, it's Mustang, and honestly we think we're scratching the surface with what we can do.
Well, you have really built out those lines. I mean, adding the Maverick in recent years, bringing back the Bronco, it's really opened that part of the business up.
Yeah, I mean, and our customers, they want to represent themselves, they want to show their personality through. That trend has not gone away. We've only really seen it grow, and by having just a great canvas like a Bronco, like a Maverick, you can do a lot of different types of things with it.
So when a customer orders, they order something that's got a package, it's got a whole set. Does that get done at the factory? It gets done at the dealership? It's some of both, or you also have though a separate place where you upfit vehicles yourself, is that right?
Yeah, so the Ford Custom Garage, the beauty of it is all that installation is done before it gets to the customer. So there's two ways that can happen. The first is the dealer can do it themselves. About 30% of our dealers take advantage of that, and we effectively ship them the pallet of parts and all the software, and they do the upfit. We also have some third-party upfitters that are approved to work with us, and so the remaining 70% of custom garage, we actually ship those vehicles to the upfitter, and when they arrive to the dealer, they're already set up just like this as a custom garage. So the pain point we were addressing there was the installation process for both our customers and our dealers.
Do the dealers make more money if their own staff installs it? It's like that seems like a lot of extra work.
Yeah, so dealers definitely have margin in it for them if they do the install. Some of our dealers are really sophisticated. They've invested in accessories. They have the space to do it. So for them, there's some upside. And for others, they want the easy button.
So you mentioned there's a big range of customization. How much money can people spend on these, and how much maybe do they usually spend?
Yeah, so can range wildly based on vehicle, but something like a Bronco, the average spend is into the four figures pretty healthily. Something like an Explorer might be a couple more basic type items. There's obviously bigger packages like an FP800S that's going to be a bigger price tag, but still, we like to talk about this car. It's the best horsepower per dollar ratio you can find on the market. So this is the other beauty of bringing our accessory packages is it actually helps the accessibility. We take all the great knowledge from something like a Mustang GTD, which not many people can afford, and we bring those lessons down, and it really helps complement our lineup.
So it kind of fits in between the top of the line and wherever else they can be.
Yeah, so our goal is to let the customer pick what personalization means to them and what type of performance flavor they want. Ford is a performance passion company. We've had a lot of experience in this, and by offering the accessories, we let our customers kind of pick their own adventure.
It seems like this is a high priority for CEO Jim Farley. I mean, of course, we hear him talk about no boring cars, but being able to personalize it makes it really not boring.
Yeah, and Jim has spoken about one of the areas that Ford's really investing in is the after-sales market and expanding our parts, and accessories and customization is a really big piece of that. And obviously it helps that we've never had a better portfolio of no boring products right now to go off of.
Anything else that we should make sure that the audience in Autotown knows about Ford Custom Garage?
There's a lot more coming. We're really excited about it. You're going to see more vehicles with Ford Custom Garage and more frequently into the marketplace. So, when one appeals to you, reach out to your local dealer.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Hey, and hear ye. That's right, we're at the Autotown Town Hall. I'm Jamie Butters, and riding shotgun, my co-host is Gary Vasilash, author of the Shiny Little Boxes blog on Substack and co-host of Autoline After Hours. Screens versus buttons. This can be a challenge for designers or for drivers if the design is less than intuitive or technically bulky. But not everyone has the same preferences for how to interface with the infotainment systems and the HVAC, climate controls, other features. So I wanted to ask the good people of Autotown, what is your ideal cabin interface? All touchscreen, just buttons and knobs, a combination, or I don't care, just make it work? Gary, you wrote recently on your Substack about the Rivian R2, and it seems that not all knobs, buttons, and dials are created equally.
To be fair to Rivian, it could possibly be user error. Okay, that's
We're getting into complaint territory.
Well, no, I'm just saying that in order to use these things, you generally have to have a level of knowledge that isn't necessarily intrinsic. Okay, now if you use the example, when you go buy a new iPhone, okay, it comes out of the box and you just that's what you got, and you're able to figure it out like that, right?
Pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah. In most vehicles, whether it's the Rivian or any number of other vehicles that I have driven of late, and I guess I should confess, I was one of the jurors for the award's 10 Best Interior and User Interface awards that were given out a couple months ago. So I've driven a lot of cars and looked at a lot of interfaces.
Yeah.
And I mean, the problem is it gets back to the issue of they're not being intuitive enough. And I think that if we go back and look at what designers were doing, automotive designers were doing, remember when everybody wanted to make an interior that looked like an iPhone?
Yeah.
And that became
because it works so well for Tesla, right?
And there are big cost implications that you're not spending so much when you don't have a knob or a button.
Right.
You're just able to do that with a few lines of code. But the issue is if, again, going back to your smartphone, when you are working with that, you are looking directly at the screen, okay? When you're driving 70 miles an hour on 696 and being passed repeatedly for going slow, you're not staring at your screen. And I don't care how big the screen is, whether it's a 14-inch screen or a 4-inch screen, okay? You should be looking at the road. Therefore, physical interfaces may have an advantage based on what you're in.
All that said, I want you to talk about these new haptic dials on the steering wheel. Right? They have, just tell the audience that's not familiar. They have these new controls, and maybe there takes some getting used to, but it does sound like it's pretty. You said they were very proud of it. It sounds like it might unlock some features.
So to their credit, they wanted to have something physical. So on your steering wheel, on either side, you have these this serrated surface that there are roller buttons, and the amazing thing is that Rivian actually designed and engineered them themselves. They didn't go to a supplier and say, "Hey, we want these things." And these, you're using these on your left side or your right side, and you're able to do all kinds of things with the screen that is in the center of the IP. But again, you have this issue of
the attention being away from the road.
It's not even the attention being away from the road so much as it is like, gee, am I doing this right? Should I be maybe using the left one rather than the right one? Am I getting what I need to be getting from the vehicle at that point in time? I would argue that it could be a generational thing, and I will admit that I grew up driving vehicles that had physical controls, and maybe that's just like, kids, get off my lawn. I don't want this new digital interface.
I remember when the BMW iDrive was new, and there was a lot of uproar about it, and I finally got in one, and I nearly got in about 3 wrecks in about 4 blocks downtown.
Yeah.
And so then I was, okay, I got to figure this out when I'm in park and, slow my roll a little. But then not long later, maybe a year later, I was driving an Audi, and it had kind of it just had 1 dial in the middle and 4 buttons around it. And it was a little bit complicated. Each button could sort of change the game or be a direction thing. But within about 3 days, it was just muscle memory.
Right.
And I could immediately get to where I needed. I suspect that the Rivian knobs would be like that as well.
100%. I have no question that would be the case, that you would learn and it would be fairly straightforward once you accomplished this learning. Shouldn't it be intuitive? hey, shouldn't this be something that you just get right off the bat instead of putting it in park and waiting 3 days and then all is good?
Most likely, especially if you're ever going to be in a rental car fleet. All right, well, folks, you can go to the Autotown with Jamie Butters LinkedIn page or other social media sites to cast your vote. Leave a comment, and I may read it on the air. Autotown Radio is every Saturday at 7 a.m. on WJR 760 and posted to the world's audio platforms soon afterward. Thank you all for visiting Autotown today. Thank you to Gary Vasilash for joining me here in the studio, and to Matt Simpson from Ford and the entire Ford Custom Garage team for their help. I'm Jamie Butters. This show was produced by Matthew Peach at M1 Studios with additional video by Charlie Fracker. Original artwork is by Shelley Trombley. Maya Keener is on social media. The theme song is a banger. It was composed by Jonathan Franco. Very special thank you to our sponsors, Almovio and Toyota. If your business is interested in becoming a sponsor, please contact Autotown's executive producer, James Davies. You can be an active citizen of Autotown. Follow the show on LinkedIn to participate in the weekly poll. You can also follow Autotown on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, whatever is your favorite social network. Audio can be found on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, and of course, you can visit Autotown every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on 760 WJR in Detroit. Cheers.